watched from the outside was
cooking meth. But once you've made that decision, you're just essentially acting in self-defense, and you end up killing 30 or 40 people in self-defense.
As a writer, how do you avoid all of your characters sounding like you? Like, how do you make differentiation between characters as well as the main character?
I think with the cleaner, Esme basically sprung into my head and took her claws and kind of put them into my brain and started shouting into my ear. So she kind of came to me fully formed. She had a very strong voice, she had a very strong personality. And it was very much in her silence, her quiet, her invisibility, her kind of, hiding in the shadows, and that was her power, and that was definitely a voice that came to me, absolutely. What I find motivates me is very different to what might motivate you or anybody in this room. And it is sometimes really difficult. Like if you look at online and you read people's opinions, like comments, and you think, how on earth can they think such a thing? And there is this idea that we have such different way of thinking, and what is part of what is fun about being a writer is tuning into those different ways of thinking, even though personally to me it makes absolutely zero sense.
I had the luxury of writing comically, so tinged with humour, which means you can go slightly broader than you can carefully observed character studies. And in fact, the premise of my novel is that he takes on the persona of a sort of hard-bitten East Rand detective, which is very broad. And he takes that on specifically because his initial response is when he decides to pretend to be a cop, he wants to be an Afrikaans detective, like something Leon Mayer would write, sort of hard as nails, somebody called like Stahlberger or something like that. Until his friends point out, well, can you speak Afrikaans? It would be awkward if you're in the middle of an interrogation, you're giving kind of first language attitude that you've got Tweedetol vocab. But there are moments where you find yourself, where you go, oh gosh, hang on, that tone is a little bit similar to that, and then you kind of quite consciously and deliberately have to break it up.
Okay, first session done. Thoughts afterwards. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought that both authors made being a writer very human and just grounded what it's actually like. And I loved Tom's admission that he is incredibly deadline driven with his publisher, and his words, "I'm not lazy, I'm just less motivated than others." So I really enjoyed that honesty, and it does make one think about, okay, so if you don't have a publishing deal and a contract and an editor chasing you, how do you create those deadlines for yourself as a writer to actually be writing and publishing and getting your work out there? As Tom says, you're not lazy, you're just less motivated than others. How do you create that artificial motivation? So that's just some thoughts I've had so far in this.
Sunny Sunday morning in Franschhoek, so thank you very much everybody. It's really good to see you all. He lives on the top of the one side of the scoreboard and I live on the top of the other, and we wrestle for points. Grim always wins in the end, obviously, but it's pretty nice to get a couple of points against him along the way. So sometimes it's just bad luck, and we don't like to accept that. We want to know what we can do to make it not happen to us.
Sure, a super powerful session, gut-wrenching, really does make you think about your own mortality and people around you. But very, very powerful, and we could see it on every single person's face that it was affecting them in the same way. And it's a very emotional session, I'd say, about so many different things, from the experience of doctors in ER and hospitals and stigma against mental health and their own health, to the question of life and death, and the questions about the sister dying, and life after death, and whether we really see our relatives in the hospital room and people actually experiencing that. It's just incredible, absolutely incredible.
know, they felt very Egyptian. They spoke Arabic and French and Italian and Greek. They come here.
Okay, thoughts on the last session. As someone who's also of Greek descent myself, with immigrant Greek grandparents, my grandfather having come from Egypt as well, Costa was absolutely wonderful as a speaker. You know, he was so evocative with the wording and the languaging that he used, and it was just such a delight to listen to, and listen to his family's evil eye rituals compared to mine. Realize that we actually, like, you know, they lived in the same place at the same time, like my grandparents and my parents and my family. Just incredible parallels, and how you know, the immigrant Greek experience, which, you know, can be replicated into the immigrant experience in South Africa in those eras, is just so resonant across families and across generations even. So I absolutely loved it, and I'm so glad I went.